It's time for the Daly Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest, undertaking an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Kryptonian Collection, the monthly show where our venerated Council of El will gather to discuss, argue, and finally vote on whether a movie should be granted entrance into the illustrious Kryptonian Collection, a list of the greatest films our meager little planet has to offer. My name is Scott Daly, your host and permanent member of the Council, and joining me today is my co-host and fellow permanent member, Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going?
Going well, Scott. We've overcome some early technical difficulties, and now we're heading right into episode 6. Very excited, very excited. It's very dramatic. We had an upset last episode, spoiler alert, and excited to see how things go this time.
I think it's okay if you spoil the end of the last episode in the current episode. I think that's generally allowed. Yeah.
Right, because you're supposed to be listening to these in order. I don't know what people are doing, but that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, then you'd always know how the last one ended. So. All right.
All right. Also joining us as our rotating member of the council for an unprecedented 4th time in a row, Chad Acevedo. Chad, welcome back to the show. We cannot get rid of you.
Honestly, just despite my best efforts, I cannot get kicked off.
I mean, it's people keep nominating, bad movies, and then we don't let them in, so you stick around.
Yeah, it happens. I did pick the best movie.
It's funny because I was really mixed on Silence of the Lambs, and little did I know by voting yes, I would be stuck with you for 4 months.
Well, I guess you just like being accused of being smug.
All right, but today might be the day that someone finally kicks Chad off the council. But before we introduce that person, we need to go over the rules of the Kryptonian Collection, and for that, I will pass it to you, Matt.
All right. Well, the rules of the Kryptonian Collection are very simple. A challenger will put forth his movie and argument for including it. The council and our challenger will then discuss the film in detail, including its merits and flaws. Once the discussion is complete, the council will vote. Each of the 3 members gets 1 vote, and if the film receives at least 2 yes votes, it is entered into the collection. And at this point, the challenger would also be awarded the 3rd seat on the council, finally kicking Chad off. The challenger would then join us next month and get a deciding vote in that month's film. If, however, the film does not get the required 2 votes, it is rejected and forever banned from consideration. The challenger, of course, is welcome to come back and put forth a new film and try their luck again. Speaking of that challenger, who do we got this week, Scott?
We have Shannon Hubbell, a writer and editor of the website Loot & Bus, and a friend I met at Fantastic Fest a couple weeks ago. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure to have you.
Good to talk again.
Yeah. That's I think one of the best parts of Fantastic Fest is people that you've only known via the internet for the longest time. You get to meet in person and form real relationships with, and then you invite them to come on your podcast. that's what Fantastic Fest is for. But Shannon, as our challenger, what movie have you brought for consideration this month?
I have chosen David Cronenberg's 1983 science fiction body horror film Videodrome.
And
go ahead.
No. So tell us. I guess give us a brief synopsis of Videodrome, and then tell the council why you think it is worthy, why you selected it, and why you think it's worthy.
So basically, Videodrome follows the character of Max Wren, played by James Woods, being super, super slimy. He's the proprietor of a television network that traffics in sensationalism, softcore sex, and hardcore violence, they say. and he comes across a pirate TV broadcast called Videodrome that shows torture and murder. He thinks it's fake and not snuff, and he decides to pursue it as something for his broadcast, and gets into some very strange a very strange situation. Basically, the broadcast has a signal in it that creates a new part of his mind and seemingly makes him, in addition to being the old flesh, human flesh, becomes video flesh, a new state of being. So, normal stuff.
Oh yeah, of course. So, so why do you love this movie so much?
Well, I mean, it was actually the one of the two movies that made me want to get into movies. I saw these two movies in the same year, this and The Thing, and they've been major influences on me. This film in particular, I mean, number one, just the surreal imagery, how we start out with a fairly straight ahead narrative that, as the film keeps going, we get into this very surreal world of imagery that's a mixture of sexuality, violence, technology, all melding together, using some wonderful imagery of analog video technology, which is really neat to see now. I'm sure it looked super futuristic at the time, but but it has this wonderful vibe of physicality of technology mixed with biology. A big thing, James Woods in this movie is just remarkable. And rewatching it this time around, it really struck me how this movie would be lesser without him in that performance. He's plays a total sleazeball perfectly, but he's a thoughtful sleazeball. He's a thinking sleazeball, and he's sympathetic and he's funny. And it's just like a lot of the movie rests on him. It's a remarkable performance. The visual style really struck me this time around as well, which I would say that Videodrome was a big step up for Cronenberg visually, coming from the films before. There's a certain, it's not flashy, but it's elegant. There's some really interesting cinematography going on, and it creates this wonderful tone. But I mean, a big thing though, I would have to go to the effects work as well. Rick Baker doing some. This is a couple years after American Werewolf, I think. Yeah, a couple years later.
Yeah.
Just really great tactile, just beautiful, surreal stuff. And also, this is something that really just occurred to me during this last rewatch, is the prescience of the film. Like a year before, was it 82 that Blade Runner came out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, which is widely credited as, like the first cyberpunk film. And there's a lot of cyberpunk in Videodrome, particularly the ideas of William Gibson. The street finds its own uses for things. So, he's talking about, like information technology, but in this case, it's, we have, video technology being used for titillation, pirate broadcasts, that sort of thing, and also the idea of the new flesh, the idea of having existing as image, we met only recently, but until then, we were just names on a screen and an avatar and text. And when I rewatched this, I saw the scene where Brian Oblivion says, "Soon we will all have special names designed to make the cathode ray tube resonate." And it's like, oh, this is weirdly prescient of internet culture, which I've watched this movie so many times over 20 years, and I never made the connection with internet culture in that way. But yeah, there's just tons of stuff going on in here within all the dream logic, and it continues to surprise me.
Yeah,
each time I watch it.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna probably talk for a long time about the kind of agelessness of this film in that regard, and that the conversations that are being discussed in this film and the themes in this film are things that we still talk about today. Absolutely. Before we do that, I want to go around the table and the virtual table, the new flesh table, and get everyone else's opinions on the film. Chad, just tell us if you had seen this movie before, and what you thought of it.
This is actually my first time. I do like David Cronenberg quite a bit, so I was glad I got to see it. You know, it like I say every week, I wish I'd had a chance to watch it twice, but I think I enjoyed it. So I think discussing it about 15 minutes after I watch it will be good. I want to have a chance to. I'll have a chance to form my opinions as I hear arguments for and against.
That's good. It's the freshest on your mind, I guess. That's good.
Very much so.
Matt, same question.
Yeah, the first time I saw it was last night. Yeah, so I'm just a little bit ahead of Chad there. And I don't entirely know what to make of it yet, so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I definitely had a lot of thoughts and reactions about it, but I haven't really been able to sum up my thoughts and feelings and even interpretations. Like I'm still not sure whether we're supposed to take what we're seeing in this movie at face value, or is it like this is more, the mental degeneration of this man rather than, taking the text literally as the TV spirit is causing him to have a brain tumor that gives him the power to manipulate reality.
Why not both?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Toward the end, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's one thing that kind of I didn't know quite how to interpret. The first part of the movie, like Shannon says, is sort of a straightforward story, and it's not confusing. You're following it. It makes sense. It's a good, engaging story, and you could really explain probably the first half of the movie to anyone in a synopsis fashion, and they would understand what you were talking about. And then the second, I'm estimating the times obviously, but the second half roughly, you're just like hall of mirrors, television screens, hallucinations, sexual imagery, TVs turning into women, but not that that's bad. That's just there's an interesting direction the movie took. But anyway, I'll let the discussion move on, and hopefully these things will be clarified for me.
I think they will be, and I think I'm very excited about this conversation because I think this is a movie that I think it's very possible that the four of us will all have a different interpretation of what the movie is saying and what actually happens, and I think they will be equally valid. It's just that type of movie. I had never seen this movie before, and I really thought I did. I was somehow getting it confused in my head with Scanners, and sat down and was like, oh, I'm gonna watch Videodrome again, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember any of this. So I watched it for the first time last night too, and calling myself a big fan of Cronenberg, it's a little embarrassing to admit that, but I really enjoyed this movie, and it's one of those that the more I think about it, the more I like it. I think, Shannon, you absolutely correct about James Woods' performance. He was perfectly cast for this character. He just embodies that sleazy businessman-esque ness of the character, while also still being likable enough that you're kind of rooting for him. But I do say I listened. So if I had to talk about one of my complaints about the movie, as much as I did like it, Matt, you mentioned that you felt the movie kind of got more and more confusing as it went on, and seemed less focused and a little more abstract, and I think that's intentional. But also, I was listening to the director's commentary after I watched the film, and he kind of admitted that when they started filming this, the script wasn't done yet, and they were still working things out, and he was still discovering what the movie was going to be. So, like, the last half of that movie kind of feels like that. Like, it feels like It's a movie trying to figure out what it wants to say and what it wants to be about. And I think that's good in that it allows these varying interpretations that I'm sure we're all going to have. But it does make it feel a little lost at times.
Yeah. There was actually one line, to speak of cheat codes information from outside of the movie. There was one line from the Wikipedia that I read that sort of clarified a huge amount of things for me, and I thought, did I just fail to get this, or did the movie not emphasize it enough? And I wasn't sure whether, that's just kind of an example of like, toward the latter half, the movie didn't seem to be able to decide whether it wanted to take you on a surrealist psychedelic vision or convey a thesis to you. And you could argue it does both, but if I'm missing certain specific information, then I'm thinking it's not successfully conveying its thesis necessarily.
Yeah, so I think that's fair. I think one of the things that the movie does very well is this is a movie about hallucinations, basically, and because of the way that Cronenberg shoots the hallucinations, like there's no transition, there's no musical key. Like Howard Shore's score is actually very muted in this film. It's very good, but it's not overpowering. So there's no like key to key you in on what is a hallucination and what isn't, which makes it so you kind of both do and don't trust everything you're seeing. Because like there could be an argument there that everything James Woods did in this entire movie was just him hallucinating. Like even the murders he commits at the end could just be another one of his hallucinations. And I think it's good direction to do that, but it also understandably kind of clouds things a little bit. So Shannon, what is your interpretation of the overall theme of this film?
That's I will admit,
we ask hard questions.
Yeah, no, it is a very good question, and actually, I don't think it's the type of film that can be nailed down to a single thing. Like I think it's juggling a lot of things at the same time. Like I think it's dealing with the concepts of like maybe peripheral to celebrity, the idea of survival of a type of immortality through the image. I think there's sort of a kind of a meta narrative thing going on as far as we have James Woods, we have Max Wren running a network that shows horrifying things, and later on the heavies at Spectacular Optical just call him out on it as this horrible thing that is bringing down North America, and that they're basically talking about the movies that David Cronenberg had made up to that point. And it does get into some political areas as well. Like it's dealing with so the Spectacular Optical crew, they're basically this kind of, they're like at this nationalist authoritarian types using technology to control. And then on the other side, you have the cathode ray mission people with Brian Oblivion and his daughter Bianca, who are more the utopian futurist kind of religious version of that. And so they're like these competing ideas of what technology means and how it can be used. So yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot going on. If you ask me to give a central thesis, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if it's applicable.
No, that's fair. Go ahead, Matt.
Can I just say I absolutely love the imagery of the homeless shelter where all they do is they just have TVs for the homeless people to come in and watch, and that's their idea of like taking care of the homeless.
Yeah, that's going to cure the homeless of their problem. I love that too. That's such a clever idea, and I do think there's so much going on here, right? There's this idea of the elite trying to separate the wheat from the chaff through this method of control, because they're targeting only the people that would watch this lewd, disgusting stuff. It is like we were talking about how this kind of precludes the internet age, but it also, reality television like just our obsession with TV in general. Like this is stuff that like in 1983 Cronenberg was talking about and more or less predicted to an incredible level of accuracy. And it is kind of amazing to watch it with that mindset. I wonder if I had watched this movie in '83. This movie did not do very well and has garnered a cult status since. But I wonder if I have the benefit of hindsight and seeing, wow, look at all this stuff that he correctly predicted. How media and television is used to control the populace, and how there exists this reality type television where people just watch things with no stories and no point, but they're just seeing people either suffer or I mean, it's not, obviously reality TV isn't real snuff films, but the metaphor's there. Yeah. But it is really remarkable, and I think I do think that the scene to scene layout of the narrative kind of bogs down that overall central conversation a little bit, because there is so much going on that I think the movie might have benefited from having a more clear a clear thesis. But that's really just me nitpicking. I mean, I still really enjoyed everything that I saw.
Yeah, I like sort of I surprised myself by how much I actually liked some of just the weird speeches that Dr. Oblivion would give, because on the one hand they sound completely insane, but on the other hand there's always like a kernel of something really insightful. You know, the one where he says that the TV screen is the retina of the human mind, and therefore it is part of the nervous system, and therefore we can't, you know, therefore it is reality because we can't know anything beyond ourselves, and it's more real than reality or something like that. And I was like, well, that's tapping into a lot of extremely old philosophical ideas in a very interesting way that I've somehow managed to never hear before, despite living in the future. And also it's, you know, it's just something that really kind of captures you, and you kind of have to think about it. You almost wish you could just like stop the movie and think about it for a minute.
And I love the juxtaposition between the quote unquote bad guys being their front is glasses, because it's contradicting the eye is the window to the soul, to the TV screen is the new window to the soul. And I like that made contradiction between those two groups, the old and the new, kind of using this technology for different means. It's very clever.
Yeah, I like that. Is it the case that like all the bad guys wear glasses, or am I exaggerating? I feel like the glasses thing was actually like, if I rewatched it, I think I would notice certain people wearing glasses and certain people definitely not wearing glasses, and that would be like a meaningful thing.
That's possible.
I don't think Barry Convex was wearing glasses. He's like the main heel for
I think you're right.
Spectacular Optical.
Yeah.
Great name, by the way.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, just nailing it.
Well, they're all great. Like James Wood, Max Wren, and then the Oblivions. They're really great names. So I want to talk about body horror and the effects in this movie a little bit, because I think one of the things with body horror, I think, is you either love it or hate it. I don't think there's a real middle ground on it. When are you going to prove me wrong as soon as I toss it over to you guys? What do you think about Cronenberg and body horror, or just body horror in general? Do you respond to it? Do you like it? Matt, you go first.
This movie, it was interesting because toward the beginning of the movie, there's a lot of weird, you know, an unusual amount of like sexual BDSM type imagery, and then it moves on to very abstract body horror things that aren't necessarily sexual, and those, I don't know, maybe I'm opening myself up to Freudian analysis, but those two types of body type invasive imagery are very different, I think.
Yeah.
The body horror stuff doesn't usually bother me too much. I'm not saying it never has. It really depends, actually. I think it depends a lot on the person. I'm not sure exactly, because I don't intentionally seek out a lot of this type of material, and so it's always interesting to see what effect it's going to have on me. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything smart to say about body horror, actually.
Well, Shannon, you obviously love it, so.
Well, yeah. The thing with body horror, though, as a genre, is that basically Cronenberg dominates the entire genre.
That's true.
That there are other, fairly well-known films that venture into it. Like, I would say that The Thing is body horror as well.
Yeah.
And then movies like Society, or Slither, or things like that. And I really like body horror, and I'd like to see more of it outside of Cronenberg's work. Is it really, like, as a horror fan, I've seen so much horror that it takes a lot to actually unnerve me, to actually freak me out at all or scare me. And there's something about the invasiveness of body horror that just actually like gets under my skin. If and yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the genre, and I wish there was more.
Chad, how about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I like it, but that might be something because I just can't cope with the freaky stuff. But
that was a quote from the movie for those listening at home.
I think I wrote down 4 notes, and that was I underlined that 3 times. I find it very effective. It's like I wouldn't say I love the horror genre because in general I'm just too jumpy, but I do enjoy body horror. I think it's the one movies that I'll watch and I'll feel a little affected by. Yeah, back to Matt's comment about it kind of going from all this the BDSM sexuality to like the body horror. I kind of think the entire thing from front to back was very kind of somewhat sexual, just because he has a tummy vagina.
He does have a tummy vagina.
That's a tummy vagina. That's all. That's got to be intentional.
And a fleshy glands on the end of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is something inherently sexual about body horror. I think it's taking the human body and taking and distorting it in weird ways. I mean, The Fly was one of I think The Fly was the first Cronenberg movie I saw, and I absolutely loved that movie. And the body horror in that fascinated me. Just watching this guy transform was just incredible, and weird, and it's like the movie's about his relationship with Gina Davis's character. I'm going way off topic here, but so I love it. I absolutely love it. I like it from a technical and practical standpoint. I like seeing how they did it is incredible, but I just think it's fascinating to watch, and it does gross me out. It's disgusting, but in like and I enjoy seeing it kind of way.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I was just thinking, the Fly is one example where it kind of highlights, I guess, my notion of it is like you're watching things happen to people's bodies, and the most important part of it is that they really don't want those things to be happening to their body. So like in The Fly, he's turning into this horrible monster, and he's like aware of it. One thing that always makes me squirm, even though it's really like the most tame thing in the world by the standards of Cronenberg, is the scene in The Matrix when they put the little probe on Neo's belly button, and it crawls in his belly button, and, and then there's a lot of, and then soon after that, he's like pulling all these tubes out of his body. A lot of that is just like this invasiveness in his body, and a lot of what you're reacting to on a dramatic level is the fact that he's so freaked out by it.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's penetrative, so like tying
Yeah.
in with sexuality as well.
Yeah.
exactly.
So I have a question here then. Do you, as much as I love body horror, do you guys feel that there were parts in this movie where they did it just because it's Cronenberg? Like the thing I think of is when he when Max Wren kills the Barry Convict's character, and he like explodes and his body rips open, and it's like for seemingly no reason other than I'm David Cronenberg and I want to do this now. Um, I just felt like there were times that, like the thing that I like the most about the Fly is it all makes sense narratively and thematically there, and there are times when it does here. I love the idea of the videotape coming to life and the TV set coming to life, and this pulsing gross thing. But there were other times when I felt like they just did it just to do it.
Well, one thing that I think about when he kills Barry Convex and he erupts with tumors or whatever the hell was going on there, cancer bullets apparently. He it feels to me like at that point it's establishing that he actually has power outside of just being controlled by Videodrome. He's not just a guy walking around shooting people. There's actually power within whatever he's become, which kind of sets up, when we get to the ending and he has to give up the old flesh. It sets up the idea that like he maybe he's just degenerating. Maybe there's actually some crazy thing that he's gonna be capable of at this point going on. So it kind of like it just sows the seeds of a potential reality of what he's actually becoming.
Yeah.
I like the ambiguity at the end where he could just have gone completely insane and killed himself, and he could be turning into Akira, and we really don't know because the movie ends right there.
Yeah. So the ending, I really like the ending, but also at the same time, I feel like with the last act of the movie, I feel like Max Wren loses all agency because he's either under control of one person and then he just switches to being under control of Bianca Oblivion, and then at the end, I guess technically he makes the decision to shoot himself, but it feels still like he's just being manipulated. So I mean, he's kind of stops being a character in the final act of the film. Kind of. Am I alone on this one?
No, I actually agree. It kind of works for me, but it is definitely the case. He does completely lose agency.
Yeah, and I also prior to that, and maybe this is a nitpick, but well, I guess not prior to that. During that, the bad guys, I don't remember the names of the various entities, but the bad guys make him kill his business partners, and I was that whole sequence. I was like, this doesn't serve their goals because now Max Wren is just a murderer, and they're dead, and Max Wren isn't going to be able to use Videodrome, or he's not going to be able to use his broadcasting station to broadcast anymore because he's a wanted criminal who committed murders and people have witnessed it. And how does this how did killing those guys push their goals forward at all? And then that made me start thinking like, well, they don't, so that makes me think it's a hallucination, and he's just doesn't make sense, and it's a hallucination. So I didn't end up knowing how to interpret that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's fair because there's no indication from the film that these two business partners of his, who we've seen in maybe two brief scenes before this, would not totally go along with him broadcasting this stuff. They seem just as on board as he is with all this other stuff. So yeah, I agree. I don't think eliminating them was necessary for the nefarious plans. But what that says, whether or not he was hallucinating or not, I have no idea. I think the movie seems to go out of its way to have a news report like play it loud enough to where you, the audience, hear it, that says that those two people are definitely still dead. and that actually did happen. But I mean, that like anything could be a hallucination at this point, so that means almost nothing.
Right. And really, if you view the story from that outside perspective of, not if you were following around Max Wren with a camera that was somehow not capturing his hallucinations and assuming the hallucinations were not actually manifesting in reality, then you would just see someone having like a very violent schizophrenic breakdown, because he's doing things that make no sense and feels he's literally hears his voices telling him to kill people, which is a classic symptom of paranoid schizophrenia. So,
and I think that's
I think
totally
it's
a
definitely
fair
one valid
interpretation. Yeah. I think we said that at like the exact same time. Yeah, it is.
Yes,
it's totally valid. And I don't know how. The problem is going from that interpretation. I don't know what it is saying about all the things that it's talking about. If really this whole thing was just an illusion, or delusion, what does it say? I still can't land on that, and that's the hard part I'm having.
right. And part of it is, it could be saying, I guess, just spitballing that the him being who he is, somebody who's been exposed to all this violent media, someone who would say, yeah, it's just solid sex and murder. I think it's the next big thing. That's basically driven him crazy. Like, it's sort of maybe taking an ironic interpretation of, like, looking at what the media says about films that Cronenberg would make and saying, oh, you think this is going to drive people crazy? Okay, let's make a movie about Cronenberg films driving someone crazy.
Yeah, and there's absolutely something to that. The fact, this story or this argument that's been going on, since the existence of entertainment, that violence in movies, TV, plays, whatever, translates to making people more susceptible or more willing to commit violent acts. And this movie kind of says yes, because by having the only way that the Videodrome program works is by being broadcast over acts of violence or either sexual or non-sexual violence. It allows the brain to be more susceptible to the signal. It's kind of saying that, yes, that's absolutely true, that you watch a lot of lewd, violent stuff and it messes with you. But then it kind of, I think I'm confusing myself. I think it both does and it doesn't, but then it goes back to, oh no, this was just a government organization that's using this nefariously. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going in circles here.
Yeah, plot and narrative were not the strong suit. So that it's not your fault, Scott.
But it's sorry, go ahead.
I think it's espousing both sort of sides at the same time and not necessarily taking either side. I think that's why it's confusing.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think we could look at this as Cronenberg wrestling with, what his contribution to society has been. But both talking about his critics and then him just trying to figure out, what is the impact of what he does. And that's an interesting way of looking at it, and that this film is an exploration of that. It ties into the meta-ness of the movie that Shannon touched on in his intro. And that's the kind of stuff I love. So I enjoy it, but it it makes me ask more questions than I get answered.
Yeah,
so,
no, go ahead. It's just very interesting that we're having this like you said, it's the same conversation we've been having for how old is this movie? It's like 30 years old or something.
Yeah.
It's like, and now we have video games where not only are you capable of immersing yourself in these images, but you're actually like playing the role of the person who shoots up an airport or whatever. Like, you can find video games with all kinds of horrible content that, back then it was just this new idea of video. It's funny. I don't actually know what, like, they keep saying the word video, and it's almost like from our point of view in time, the word video to me almost means implicitly like video tapes, like VHS, because no one ever says like, let's watch a video, right? Like, I haven't heard that in years.
Yeah.
Like, if someone were to say let's watch a video, I would assume they had a VHS player somewhere. And is this movie using that same usage that I'm imagining, or in this movie, in this period of time, does video just mean visual television? Because we've had television for much longer than we had VHS, obviously, and then VHS expired. So I'm just wondering what exactly they mean there.
Actually, Matt, those are Betamax tapes, so you're wrong.
Those are Betamax tapes?
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
No, I think that's a valid question, and I don't know if I have the answer for you.
Do you know why they had to use Betamaxes, Scott?
No. Do you have trivia for me?
I did, because the VHS would not fit in the tummy vagina. Yeah.
That's perfect. Did you know that James Woods hated that tummy vagina and was saying that I'm not an actor anymore, I'm just the carrying case for this slit in my stomach?
That's fantastic.
The commentary I listened to was actually fascinating, because he was apparently miserable during this entire shoot, and also was like really paranoid, like kind of similar to his character. At first, Cronenberg thought he was just like joking around, but he was actually like really paranoid. Like the scene where he puts on the big giant helmet to record his visions. That's not James Woods, because he refused to get in that helmet. That's actually Cronenberg in that helmet. And he didn't say, like, he didn't want to do it. James Wood refused to do it, so he had to get in there.
Oh my god!
So there's a little trivia for you.
This is so wonderful. It really makes me appreciate the Simpsons episode where he takes Apu's job.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, Apu gets fired, so he takes Apu's job because he's preparing for a role as a tightly wound convenience store clerk. And then the whole episode, he's working at the Quickie Mart, and it's James Woods' actual voice.
Yeah, I remember that now. God, James Woods is the best.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, see, that's the thing. I don't know James Woods from that many things. Like, if you ask me off the top of my head, I'm like, okay, he was in Contact, the Simpsons episode. Kind of drawing a blank here.
But I think
John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yeah,
fantastic.
But I think the cool thing about him and this performance in particular is, like, I had never seen this movie. This is one of his defining performances, but I saw this and immediately was like, oh yeah, this is classic James Woods. I mean, this is just who he is, and he plays his character so wonderfully. We've touched on his performance a lot. What did you guys think of the other performances in the movies? Because, I mean, freaking Blondie's in this movie, and I thought she did a pretty good job for not having really acted very much. I thought she was very good in this film. Anyone?
I think she's well cast, personally. I don't think that she's a particularly strong actress, but she's well cast. So
well,
it
yeah.
works.
I mean, but it's a small role. Like she serves her purpose of being this really really weird kinky girl who disappears but then comes back. I think having her come back at the end was perfect. Having her be the person that finally convinces him to become the new flesh, quote unquote, was a really well written thing, and she performed it well.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention about her. I love the reveal of her character when they're on the what is it on the TV show, and we start off seeing Max Wren, and he's talking to the host, and then he turns around and the camera moves to the side, and we see her for the first time on TV on a monitor of one of the cameras, and that's the first time we see her. I love that reveal.
Yeah, I missed that. That's great. There's a scene that I really liked, and it's with the first time we go into the TV station's like hidden satellite stealing center, and there's this shot of the city and the really tall buildings, newer buildings, and then it kind of pans down to the building that they're in, which is this old like brick, like dilapidated, falling apart building with this brand new, incredibly technological satellite dish sitting in the middle of it, and I just loved this transition between the old world and the new in this high tech device sitting in the middle of this old dilapidated building. Was really well done. The cinematography is good. Is this the same cinematographer that he normally uses? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Nope.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about I don't know if this is if this falls under cinematography or what exactly, but there are so many scenes that are not even really scenes, but almost like transitional moments where, for example, James Woods' character is walking down a hallway or something, and the camera's following him, and there'll be some kind of unsettling or subliminally distracting detail in the background. Like, there's one point where like he's standing there and then he like moves, and just for a fraction of a second you see there's like a cereal box with a nude figure on it, and then the shot ends, and it's like you don't really get enough time to process or think about it before the next thing happens, and this just happens over and over.
Yeah, so Mark Irwin was a cinematographer, and he did Scanners, The Fly, and this, so he works with Cronenberg a lot, which makes a lot of sense because these movies feel very similar, at least in how they're shot. All right. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up before we move on to the voting? Are we ready to go? Shannon, do you have any last arguments before we put it to a vote?
I think I'm good, actually.
All right. So let's do this. Chad, let's start with you. Videodrome, yes or no?
So I was thinking of the things I didn't like about it. I thought the narrative was a little off. I think they may have run out of tax rebates toward the end, which might have why it feels kind of sudden in how it's finished. But I would say for the perfect usage of James Woods, I'm glad he's alive. But if he'd died after he'd made this, it'd been perfect. Just his swan song, and he's done. Because he really does. It's like oh my God, James Woods is that person. Mm-hmm. For possibly, well, if it's not, I don't know what movie it'd be, but the single most usage of a film's title in the movie.
I thought about bringing up a drinking game. Yeah.
oh, that's fantastic. And then third, just best usage of a tummy vagina. I'm gonna say yes. I
best usage of a tummy. Is there more than one usage of a tummy vagina?
I don't know, but they did it very effectively. So I do wonder what, if it's all real or fake. Why would you jam a gun into your tummy? But that's beside the point. But I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, I did not understand the gun gestating in the tummy vagina.
But if the problem is you're hiding your gun in your tummy vagina, you might stop and say, well, why do you have a tummy vagina? So just accept it.
All right. The point of this conversation is Chad votes yes. All right.
Yeah, thumbs up.
So let's move on to Matt. Matt, what's your vote?
So this may be surprising considering I've been talking basically positively about the movie, but I'm pretty big on like story and narrative. That's what usually speaks to me, and that's what I usually enjoy about movies and about everything. And this movie really did go off the rails, and I don't feel like it justified that. Like sometimes a movie goes off the rails and it's like, yes, but it went off the rails in a way that was earned, and it couldn't have gone any other way. But this one, it was just kind of, I don't know why it happened, and I'm not sure what message it was trying to tell me there. It had a lot of very interesting imagery. It definitely stayed on my mind, but I don't know if I would put it on our list of greatest things ever. And I'm throwing you under the bus here, Scott.
It's always got to come down to. I need to stop doing me last on these things. So,
No, don't do that.
So, this is, and to be honest with you, I didn't know how I was going to vote when I sat down to start this recording. I didn't even know halfway through. I kind of don't even know now. I could change my mind as I'm talking. But I love Cronenberg, and my biggest problem, and we've discussed this with both the Coen brothers and with Steven Spielberg before. If we treat this as, if we let this Cronenberg movie in, are we saying this is the Cronenberg representation we want? And it is definitely not my favorite Cronenberg movie. The Fly has that, and will probably always have that. But I think this movie does so many really smart, interesting things, and I agree, Matt, that the narrative suffers a little bit. But I think it's talking about so many different things, and it's gotten us to have this conversation on, the media's influence on people's behavior, and the rise of internet culture and reality television culture, and this subculture of seedy sex and snuff stuff, and it being used to control, but also it being pushed against. So all that to say is, I think this is an important film with a really great performance. It's really well directed, so I'm going to vote yes. So that's it. 2 out of 3, which means Videodrome is in the Kryptonian Collection. And if someone ever comes and nominates a new Cronenberg movie, we might have to have a battle, Matt. I think that'd be a lot of fun if we had battle.
That would be, because there can be only one.
but for now, Videodrome is our Cronenberg film, and I'm happy it's in there. I like different movies like this. I'm glad I got to see this movie, because I can't believe I hadn't seen it before this. It was very surprising to me. But so there you go, Shannon. Your movie is in, which means, Chad, you're out. I should have said that's part of the reason why I voted.
Yeah. I'm so sick of Chad. Can go on my tombstone, bested by a tummy vagina.
So that means next month, Shannon, you are invited to be our rolling council member. So you will get to vote on whatever film that's put up next month, as long as you want to. If you don't want to, we'll bring back Chad. But,
I am absolutely down, and I promise I will not abuse my power.
That's a lie.
Yeah, it is.
Chad, you haven't called me smug this episode yet. We're 53 minutes in.
No, I opened up with implying that you're smug.
Oh yeah, it was the implied smugness. I got it. Cool.
Yeah. You're being kind of smug about this whole Chad leaving the podcast.
So Matt, this is number 5. We've got 5 movies in the collection now. We're 5 out of 6, which is pretty good. I think that just means that's a testament to the quality of films that are brought before the collection.
Yeah, and once again, I'm very happy with this choice, because like it's my favorite when somebody brings something really unusual to the table, even if there's a risk it might not make it in by the votes. It's always more fun to watch something I've never seen before, certainly, and discuss something bizarre rather than arguing about whether Citizen Kane or Saving Private Ryan or Blade Runner or some classic like that deserves to be on the list, because it's like, yes, of course, well-known great movies are going to make it on the list, but this is more interesting to discuss.
Yeah, and I think there are plenty of lists out there for those kind of movies, right? I want our list to be comprehensive, but I also want it to be unique. So I'm kind of happy that that's what's happening so far. And I do like the idea of doing a battle if someone ever nominates another movie. Like if it was a Fly versus Videodrome battle, I think that'd be a really amazing conversation. How to compare and contrast those two films would be fun. So what I'm saying is, a challenger out there somewhere, nominate The Fly somewhere down the road, and we'll have a great conversation.
Yes.
All right. Before we go, I think we just wanted to we wanted to talk about next week's episode, which is the fourth, I think, episode of Adrian's podcast, Phantom Zoned. Matt, I don't know if we've settled on what film we're doing for that yet. I know that we're trying to keep it horror themed, which is I forgot to mention, this is also why Shannon picked this movie. Was this I kind of asked him for one of his favorite horror films, so to keep with October. But we're gonna have a bad scary movie next week, where you, I, and Adrian will discuss it and decide whether it is terrible and guilty of crimes against cinema. That will be Phantom Zone next week. But for now, let's go around the virtual table and find out where we can reach everyone. And we'll start with our guest. Shannon, where can you be found on the internet?
Well, I'm on Twitter as Brundlefly. Can you tell I like Cronenberg? So yeah, at Brundlefly. And also I have started a film criticism site with a bunch of our fellow film nerds called Luton Bus, LEWTONBUS.net. And we just started within the past couple of months, and I think we've already put out some really great stuff, so I hope people check it out.
Yeah, I would really suggest that our listeners, and even the two of you guys, take some time and check that out. There's a bunch of people writing for that, and it's a very wide net of different things. There's a guy writing a series about war movies. There's a guy writing a series about Bruckheimer movies, right?
Oh no, oh shoot, what's his name? Director
Schumacher.
of the Schumacher, yeah.
Yeah.
The series is called Beyond Bat Nipples,
which is wonderful. There's various different reviews of new movies that come out. I know you and Adrian have written some stuff about Fantastic Fest, and there's going to be more of that coming. It's really, there's a lot of different content. It's all really good writing. You guys should check it out. And Matt, let's move on to you.
I am on Twitter at moredinamail, which is spelled somewhere on the webpage that you're viewing. and I write for the Daly Planet Films website, which I actually, this was a couple of weeks ago, but I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast at the time, was that I wrote a sort of an essay about my distaste for the Netflix adaptation of The Little Prince, and how Up is a superior movie. And of course I titled it Up Yours, Little Prince. So so please check that out. It's
really good. And Matt, I can't wait for you to see the A Monster Calls film, because I know you and your obsession with children's movies discussing death. I think this is going to be one that I really want to hear your opinion of, because there were some people who said some very not nice things about that film. But we will see. You have to check that out and maybe add an addendum or a follow-up essay or something. Chad, how about you?
That sounds good.
You can find me on Twitter at Ciacevedo1982.
And you will see he is the one with... Do you have the panda bear as your avatar?
It is, yeah. It's a panda bear that's going akimbo.
All right.
Yeah, I think I picked that the day I got on Twitter, and you know how much I get tweets. So.
It's better than an egg.
Damn right.
All right, I am also on Twitter at ScottDaly85. The Twitter for this podcast and our website is at Daly Planet Films, and you can find this podcast, all the other podcasts we do, and all of our writing at DailyPlanetFilms.com. And I think that's all we had for this week. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on. We're happy to have new people come on and recommend films that we've never seen before. That was all three of us. All three of us on the council had never seen this movie before this week. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for having me on. And it actually kind of made my day to hear that none of you had seen it. Like, I love getting people to see new movies. So that's wonderful.
Yep. And Chad, thank you very much for these past 4 months of being a council member that managed to vote my way on my movie. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Long live the Videodrome. Oh no, long live the new Flesh.
God, you can't even get it right. You're
Death the
fired.
Videodrome.
You're fired.
Death the Videodrome.
Death the Videodrome.
You're off. You're off the council. All right. And for the rest of you out there, we will see you next week.